Hello. Yay.
Now we can hear you. Hello.
Oh, hello. Thank you. Great. Sometimes it's just to look into some settings. Um, so hi everyone. Welcome to Studio's call. From Palawan. It's 2 a.m. for me. So good evening for you. Wherever you are, maybe from Europe. Um, yeah, it's been very interesting. Yesterday I went to extend my visa and I realized that I've been here for 1 month already, and there's this time perception that I feel like I never left Maya in the last 3 years, and I feel like I've just arrived. So it's very interesting to experience this like uh, time perception cycle that is like related to this space. So how time can be also perceived in space and in yeah, different places. Um, so today is our studio's call, where we can do a check-in. A lot happened in a lot of different spaces, so we can come together and share something that could be personal, something that could be related to the inner dance or questions or anything that we want to hold together, so we can enter a space of co-creation. Um, so if you feel like there's any subjects lately that was present, it could be within the group or anything like related to music or observations, also through like at the moment there's a lot related to children or doctors or psychologists, and where inner dance is slowly uh, in and into. So there's kind of this openness where we come together and we can understand what space we are at locally and how we can bridge all of this together on a more regional and also global level, um, and being related to also different studies that are happening in the courses. So it's very interesting to see how things really overlap together. It's super amazing to witness, and how the calls have been really interconnected. So I would like to open the space for any sharing if you feel like this is the space for you to open up, um, and to, yeah, whatever feels in you. Could be personal, could be how you feel the space, could be anything that comes in. So let the space open. Thank you.
Funny. Oh.
I know how. Um, just letting you know, we just opened up the space, and today's the
She's
oh,
helping me pack.
yay!
We're packing because her flight is in like less than 3 hours, and we were like, let's be on the call as well. So multitasking women, you know.
And that's great if you are in a listening space or yeah. So today we come together just to share about yeah anything that is happening in the space. Um, like it could be like local inner dance or global any subjects. So it's like our studio's community call. So just letting you know.
Yeah.
So it would
Yeah.
be amazing
So
to hear. Happy packing.
Yeah. So I will start, like I continue packing, and if anything comes up, I will just let you know. Thank you,
Definitely.
Fanny.
So maybe I can start, and then from there we can see where it goes. Oscar, just letting you know, we just started to. It's our community studios, so we come and share. I don't know if you heard. We just come and share about where inner dance is at. Could be locally or things that we want to share together. Um, so we're in a space of sharing. If anything feels like it could be also we bring up any subject and we reflect on them. So yeah, something that was really amazing and was very interesting for me to witness last week. Dr. Paredes came for 2 days. It was super quick. He came from Cebu, and in March, yeah, this year, earlier, I held space for a man who has cancer when I was back home in Canada, and um, I felt a bit uh, kind of like nervous that I really wanted to hold it in a way that was supportive for him, and not knowing fully either what was his belief system or what he was coming from, because it was kind of like through a third person that I didn't have a direct contact with him before I met him. So um, I read the book of transformation medicine, and then it's interesting because now I met Dr. Paredes, and it was still very new in my mind to have this conversation between Pi and Dr. Paredes. So it was very interesting to observe also how much, like, I think they wrote it like a few years, like 7 years ago or something, or 8 years ago, and how much it's been like interesting to bring this book into the present moment and to relate to this guy and healing process and where he was at and what was the meaning of it. And it was very strong for me to hold space and to hold a dialogue also with him, because I was not coming from any like doctor perspective and really bringing this on a transformation medicine journey. So now having different conversation with Dr. Paredes and really understanding how much this is a world by itself to be within the medicine, and um, myself not being really like not really going to any doctors so much, like healing mostly naturally from my family and my mother. So I was not really close or related to all of these. Um, it's like a cycle to go into, and so like he's very optimistic, so it's super interesting also that he's bringing this in a very like open way, which is like a system by itself when we look into what medicine holds in the world and how much it's being like holding a lot of like um, different um, like power structure and dynamic in every spaces. So so how can we bring also this without coming from a space of healing, and what language do we need to actually embody when we speak to doctors, or what are the different um yeah spaces that we can come from, and not coming from like the hierarchy in us of the healer, or the like really giving back the power to the people, but then it's really like understanding that when people go to the doctor, they really have this like give me the pills so I can heal, and it's actually the first process is mostly to break down belief systems, and a lot of the time even like people coming from, would it be from illnesses, or coming from any type of um, doctor patient, or hierarchy, as well as people coming from different spiritual communities. There's like the first step is to break down the conditions, or break down the beliefs, and to be able to bring about the philosophy of um, having the power within yourself. So it's been interesting and super also hectic, because we were like only having 2 days, and he was in town and in Maya, and yeah, I find it very interesting, and it opened up a lot of questions in me about like where dance is, and where it's happening in a way that um, we connect more with sounds, and then people within the community, like within studios, or the other groups, they're having this also connection with like children, and then like cancer patients and other doctors that are joining. And for me, I really wonder like what's how to hold it in a way that can really we can join together, like um we can join together like the non hierarchical space, and have this, yeah, this language. I think it's a lot related to language, and to how to um open up. So I've been very interested to look into it. I don't personally have any connection to doctors that are linked to inner dance, so I'm very curious when people are undergoing any also connection with psychologists or things like this. It's like such a breaking down of your own way, but then it's like people are being in the system, so how much they are being observing the system, and then trying to not sneak in, but yeah, like reflect how the system is, and have almost a strategy to like be there. So yeah, that's my kind of like what is present in my field related to inner dance, and also having this curiosity with um the playlist thing, and how the Josh playlist influence Josh, and how much also um, other children in the space. For me, it's really amazing. And then I have people around me that have high anxiety or ADHD, like diagnosis, kind of like high anxiety, and then they cope differently, or um, like something specific to like menopause, or and so I'm really asking myself, would it be like, can we actually really map out what is happening in the brain with the music and related to the healing process? Like, are we there to observe um, this in a way that is really pointed out, and where is actually the intuitive process also of playlisting, or are we actually creating right now a structure that can bring us in a certain path to understand that, oh, if I play this brainwave or this sound wave, then it's going to create this in the brain and this in the body, and then this reaction is kind of not to be expected, because we don't want to go into expectation, but we want to go into like possibilities of observation. So it's been, yeah, it's been interesting. And I talk about this because last Thursday I had an online session, and I DJ'd live, and then all of these questions came up because right before we looked into music, like 2 weeks ago, I made a playlist, and it was like not with any songs or voices, but still holding like different layers like this. And at the same time, it's when we looked in when Pi created synchrony, synchronic, yeah, synchronic, the playlist. And then it felt to me like there was a big shift into the way I created the playlist, and then this one, and then the one that I held online, and so there's kind of like this confusion, but also allowance of everything in the space, and coming from the space of like there's nothing that is good or bad, and everything that is there was created in a way that is intuitive, but then to be able to pinpoint like, oh, exactly, this playlist is for that. Yeah, I have this kind of like questioning and inquiring, and being super curious, like how can we come together in a space of studying and observing and really yeah, documenting also. And I think this is what is happening also with the Josh playlist, that we are all kind of like being curious about Josh, and he's kind of becoming now like an archetype or a phenomena within like like at the moment, to see like, okay, so, like actually a lot is happening, and how the sharings are coming up from other parents is like very amazing. So yeah, it's like another approach also to look into it. um yeah, so this is kind of like my inner dance around me, locality, and what is like being present in my field, and how much is being reflected back. And yeah, I don't think I have any like questions. Well, it's, my sharing holds a lot of questions and like inquiry, but not to like, I think something to be held that we can all share, and like observe and look into like a community way also to hold it, and to like yeah, really, I think question and hold curiosity. So yeah, thank you. If you feel like sharing anything, feel free to unmute.
Hi, friends. I'm Oscar. I'm joining from Mexico City. I would like to share a bit and some questions and some kind of almost concerns that I has been allowing to come into the surface regarding to these new layers of using more technology, which means power, taking distance from sounds and music made from others, and starting to diving in the power of the waves, in the power of the nature of the waves. Also, was very beautiful the audio that was by sharing, the last one, the longer one. And also it was bringing a few inputs and sharing based in the observation of nature, and how much we are in a very interesting and positive position of understanding what power means, disempowering our egos and allowing the power to be through us. In order to explain what I want to share, I will start with something. Well, in the observation of the universe, there's something always ruling something. The way that galaxies is organized, the way that our solar system is organized. The Earth is not disempowering herself because she is ruled by the sun around the sun. The Earth is not losing her domain and influences above us, even if she surrendered into these designs that are structured by nature, by the highest intelligence, and by the way that the evolution is designed. I understand for consequence and lessons that inner dance processes and inner dance energy school, as collective, as individuals, as Pai, as our mentor, of course, we has been getting learnings and learning through the experience of others, to all these things that we already know very much, between processes of power, idolatry, egoism, competition, and all the things that are part of our collective challenges, our ignorance, our state of ignorance and disconnection, and the natural process of deconstruction. So in nature, there's a very natural way how few things, and the important things, they are following certain pathways, certain rules, certain structure that allows to all system operates in a very compassionate and a very functional and a very loving, intelligent, and economic way, in the way that nature organizes itself. So I have questions in base of what I share, not for being answered here or pretending to get an answer. I feel that the answers that we are looking for, they are most of the time in the new questions that we are able to do. Yeah. So in base about the topic of composition, well, that was reflected in the audio. All of us that we are here in this path and this calling, from different corners and different point of start, we are actually conscious or medium conscious or unconscious that we are using sound and music for deconstructing, decontracting, discontracting. We are already making an exercise of playlisting is already with the purpose of that is in deconstruction is already a composition exercise. To set in a space, creating the safe space and condition, is all these articulations of languages, space, meta languages, resources, communication, body language, observation, attitude. All these elements, they create foundations for allowing what it is to take place and allowing these higher realms of intelligence, love, and harmony to take us, and giving us through this body mind and through this power that is life in itself, that is love in itself, that is in this loving intelligence, this powerful love, which I am related in that way through the space, through the sound, through the exercise of learning and unlearning, and being able to be the first who is exposed to the transformation in the space where I am supposed to hold to this process to take place by itself. So in another realm, my concerns have to do, the other two things, they are not having concern, they are just questions, and how through observation, through intuitive and through common sense, I am inspired to reflecting and sharing here with the group and with all of you friends. But my concerns have to do, I has been, as I say in the chat, I has been related to some persons that they are have an interesting degree of profundity in waveforms, sound engineer, in the knowledge of the wave, in the interaction with the brain. and also people that is related on clinical literature and clinical evidence about the frontiers and the potential frontiers that we have before we can using these technologies, which means using these tools. They are powers, they are possibilities. And when there's the implication of technologies, we are not having the same kind of intuition through controlling all that we are sending and pushing through buttons. When something is sent and is creating. The thing is the use of sinusoidal, square, triangle, and C-tooth waves. There's a very interesting reality in clinical investigation about brain damage and how brain is interacting with this. Also, in that research that I'm starting to do, based on some reflections and conversation with these people, that they have, of course, more experience and knowledge than me, and I'm related through sound and vibration in a very, not just intuitively, not just musically in a Western construction, not just in my exploration, letting go the Western construction or whatever I was studying or the degree or whatever I did. I was really going through a process of exploration and intuitive deconstruction in order to be able to play and communicate what I communicate, and the qualities that what I communicate, how contribute to the deconstruction, emotional, mental, and physical in people, because this has been the evidence during my 20 years of exercising and relating the music in that way and letting go the stages, all this other area that is very entertaining and have not too much to do or nothing to do with what we are doing here. So it was very curious to see how in that literature that I will be providing some links in the group and maybe another book references, how things as aphasia, as a cognitive losing of identity has been observed when there has been this brain damage occasioned by the proportion, the use, the frontier cross between the different body systems, how much they can hold from this type of intervention, how this type of ways to relate with the ways in its more pure way. In my case, I don't have experience with this. In my case, I'm discovering with excitement, with humbleness, and following with trust, and exploring these tools, the programs, the synthesizer, the apps, to find this literature and these reflections. I'm very careful and sharing this concern. I think that is healthier. I think that I'm not trying to disempowering or to creating doubts of inconsistencies. My purpose here is to be in a participant, a contributive, positive, open heart, and always open to learn, open to listening, open to share, and also open to research, and being able all the time to teach. I feel that it has been my way to behave, my way to participate, and my sincere attitude, and my respect, my honor, and my gratitude for having Pai as a teacher, as a mentor, as an example, and of course each of you and how your journey and your personal way and the little exchange that we're starting to create is inspiring me, is showing me, and is teaching me, and reflecting potentials on me. So I want to share all these things with all this care, and I will be able to share in the group of studios the things that they were making me observe this. And also I'm waiting for another reunion with a person that is specialized on this kind of stuff, that is more the right person. maybe some literature, some inputs can be helpful for us, because also as an inner dance process, what I has been understanding that the process that before the music was there, after the playlist, and now having access to these technologies and building the playlist in this way, and now letting go the music and starting to go to surfing waves and white noise, also the implications of pink noise is another, the white noise and pink noise, there's a lot of discussion around. So I feel that it is interesting, can be contributing to all of us, and especially for the people that we are holding and for the process that we are holding. We has been listening here, inspiring to understand that when is too much, when is, what is the careful, what is the frontiers, what is the limits. Of course, I'm sure and I feel that we are all the time guided. There's something more higher than our little minds and our roles that is ruling us. There's a sun that is making us to orbit around these potentials and this journey. And I'm glad to share these topics and things here, and looking forward how this can be addressed in the future. And the more things that I want is really contributing and understanding and sharing. So thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. I will try to share something. I am kind of living an importance of my own sharing, so I'm not sharing much in the group or anything, and everything that I end up not saying is being said anyway. So it's nice to be kind of muted, but listening to myself at the same time, or all of you. I wanted to kind of share something about the session that I had on Sunday. There were 11 people, I think, and none of them were for the first time having an inner dance process. And I decided to play the synchronic playlist. As Fanny mentioned it, I kind of remember this, and I think I want to speak to it a bit because I mean, this whole thing, this whole shift in music that happened since the beginning, that I am knowing inner dance from, I think, 2017. It's a very, very big shift. And I already, the last months, already the sessions that I had, I already used music that was not the old music. But at the same time, the synchronic playlist is like another level from all of it. And I was very nervous, and yeah, I really felt nervous because I think I felt unsure how people would react, and I think like half of the session I was still nervous, like holding space, but at the same time a bit worried, like, are they okay? Because I felt it being really intense. And for people that just come in for an evening session, even if it's on Sunday, not on a work day, evening straight after work, I feel like it's easy for us to just go into that process, into that space. But people who don't have that facility of just switching from time to space and from space to time, it is it is more, how to say, there is more friction in the shift, or in the perception of whatever waves we're holding or are holding. So yeah, I was nervous, and then I realized that I was nervous in a way for how to put it, it's like me being a bit afraid of them not having the pleasure of that they come for, because I realized that most like a lot of people come for the relaxation or the high of the inner dance. Well, we spoke about it a lot lately, the whole dopamine circuit satisfaction, and yeah, it's different. The synchronic playlist doesn't really give that. Well, it does at the end. There is this expansion, and you kind of, after all going through all the waves, you kind of are bound to surrender in a way. But still, it's a tricky one. So it's interesting that it was a process for myself mostly, more than for, I mean, it was all, of course, for people, and people shared the interesting things. But my own experience was interesting for me, because I realized that in a way I also wanted them to just have good time in a way, even though I wouldn't think that actively. But now looking back and thinking, why was I nervous, and why there was some sort of insecurity about it, I was afraid that something like that, there's no way it cannot work. Like, oh, what if it doesn't work? That cannot happen. So what is it about? And I realized it was pretty egoistic, the being nervous. And I shared something about the loop before the session, because this topic was very much looping lately. And Mick from the intensive was here for almost 2 weeks visiting me, and we had a lot of interesting conversations, and one of them was a lot about how there is no loop, like seeing that there is no loop after seeing a lot of the loop. And that same night we missed the call that was happening. I think it was together, the Studios Mundos and the intensive, and we were going to bed after a long conversation, like at 5 a.m, and Pi uploaded the recording of the call that was called Breaking the Loop. You know, I don't know, it was just our conversation, and then the title of the recording was about the same thing. So I also wanted to look at the loop with the people in the session, and talked about it, and felt like nobody was really relating to it, and it felt strange, because I really see the loop in everything. I mean, you could not see it, but you could as well just see it very much. And actually listening to the Breaking the Loop recording, like somewhere in the beginning, Pi says something about the music and the waves holding space for the loop, like the loop is in the space. And when I spoke about the loop with the people, they didn't relate to it. They kind of said, I asked them, does it resonate in any way with you? And one girl said, well, I more relate to the cycle. Like the loop is when you're stuck, and cycle is the shifts that happen with, that seem similar, but it's like not a loop, it's a cycle. And then another one said, yeah, I see it more as a spiral. And then it hit me, like, of course the loop is in the space when there's no time. of course it's a loop, but then when there is time, it's like a spiral. It's the cycle thing. It's moving somewhere. So when you are not perceiving time, it's very loopy. Yeah. What else did I want to share? From the sharings of the people after the session, there was this common thread through the sharings. One girl said she saw people being connected with other people, like holding their legs, like a long rope of people holding their legs, going through the pasta machine and being divided into, like, cut up into pieces, and those particles would kind of rise into the cosmos and create a mesh, a network. And then the other guy said, yeah, I also saw people climbing up people into a tower of people. So it was like this kind of structures from people. That was interesting. It reminded me, we had a conversation in Studios Mundos group about the Tower of Babel. So kind of that tower of people reminded me that a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's all that I can share. There is a lot, and at the same time, like, none of it makes proper sense to be put in a paragraph. Thank you for listening to this.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I feel there's so many things that comes to my mind, but at the same time, I don't know where to start. Very busy. Yeah, I think the first thing that came to me is when, for me, like, the feeling I have within inner dance since a bit is that there's kind of a, inner dance is restructuring itself, and the energy is like going into its own process of restructuration, or understanding, like, more in depth and in details how science is being supported. And there's kind of this, well, it might be personal also, of course it is, like, going away of the magical energy, like, um, spiritual side of it, and being still this, but being supported with something that actually we can understand and see the effect, and have this, like, yeah, structure or organized flow within what is present. And yeah, I think something, because I'm not someone, like, I'm a dancer, but I'm not into, I never learned really an instrument or music or anything. So I've always wanted to learn to DJ, so this was super interesting for me to start DJing sounds and things like this, but very in a, like, inner dancey way. And then I've been lately looking into sound and theory of sound and all of this, so it's super interesting for me that we're holding this at the moment. And I'm, yeah, like you shared, Oscar, I looked into, like, oh, pink noise and brown noise, and then okay, there's like actually different types of, like, waves, and I'm still having this, like, confusion before understanding fully. So it's like very, like, I'm still into the learning process of a lot of things, so I really take it slow because I want to grasp it. So it's interesting because I'm now coming from a steady space, but there's something that shifted in me related to inner dance, that, like, I slowly saw the music evolve through the kind of song by song, and then DJing live using my noise, but still mixing songs, and then no songs, and then going back to playlisting, and then going back now to DJing live, and then using the gadget, and then like all of this is like intermixing, and brought me into sometimes a lot of, not confusion, but like I felt spread out because I was trying things out, and now I feel I'm more getting in a focus to look into things, um yeah, more, yes, structurally. So when I was in Finland last summer at Johanna's cottage, we had a session with Pi, and he used all these gadgets and everything, and we did use a gadget actually like a few days before that, um, but like doing the sound, like creating the sound and laying down was different, and then Pi was holding something, and like I had such a big process of like I became sound, and then I could see how this kind of like disruptive sound that is now coming out from the synth and the non-hierarchical patterning that is being felt within songs, that there is like it's following a certain scale, it's following like a language, a grammar, like the grammar of sound, or the, yeah, like the what is the structure that also our body knows, and how much also nature is being embedded in it, and how much we are holding this. And so it's been interesting for me because I couldn't hold any type of pattern, and I had like a vision or embodying, or I don't, like the process, like I became really like the particles of sound, and being the wave, and then I felt um like violated in a way, because sound can enter everywhere, because if like sound needs a medium to travel, so it can go everywhere in any organs and any places in the body. And so this was for me like understanding, like if every sound particle is holding a certain density, which holds maybe a certain type of emotional charge, or like a thought system, or pattern in it, and what does it mean when it gets in contact with the body, or the sound being played with the playlist. And then in the session that we had in Finland, someone from that is within inner dance for a long time, when she started to share, um, she was actually expecting this kind of hit from inner dance, and she was like, she knew inner dance from before, so she knew the song by song, and then she was like wanting to have this. And it happened also in the immersion I had in Germany, that people asked, can we have the old way of the music? And then I was like, okay, let's actually do it. They're asking for it. Let's see like what is their sharing and how they are. And sometimes we also ask to for people to share different, like a song that they relate to. So it's been interesting because they share something that is like sometimes very spiritual, or holding this like um emotional, like they know they're gonna cry, or it like, oh, like this song about freedom, so like it's gonna create this side of like, I'm free now, or it's like knowing ahead of time, like the cause and the effect, like retrocausality, like knowing ahead of time that I'm going to experience this. So why do I choose this song? Because I know it's going to create this hit in me, this dopamine. So like all of this, like, because I think I'm now connecting kind of the dots backwards, related to like now studying and then having the experience before, and now like through the studying I'm kind of like understanding the little points in time that brought me up to here within the studios and the different studies we've been holding. And so yeah, there was like something very interesting to understand, and very like not like kind of aha moment when we held the space and we could see that people were breaking the loop. We could really see that people were not getting into this like side effect of the previous type of playlist and song, and then what is this actually, like that's what I'm curious about also, to like what is truly being held there and how much it's being like a pattern recognition that comes from the body and the brain, and how much we've been like uh, going for it, and what is also like I shared, like being represented also in social media or any type of like need to be seen or heard, or like, but very temporarily, and coming from a space of like uh yeah, just having this uh short wave of um chemical that is hitting in a, yeah, just slow hit, but then it's still not compensating for what we want. So yeah, it's very interesting. And I think, yeah, one more thing I wanted to share is like also from me coming from aphasia, what is interesting is that I was not uh having any session when I went into aphasia. Like I was not like lying down or anything. I was more like studying, and then because inner dance is just in my everyday life, this kind of like, I don't know, happened in a way. It was my own personal trust process also to go into this, and something to understand within the electricity system that I was holding and was being present in the corpus callosum. Like the brain went into a shift. And what is interesting, and where I, for me, having concern and doubt is very healthy. It's really good for us to actually go into like a studying process, and to um, not to spread and go into like something, but to bring actually a structure and to hold it. And where I would be uh, personally careful is to say brain damage, because for me it was more like a brain expansion. And so like when I was, because I was looking and studying aphasia for some time, because I wanted to understand, okay, what actually happened and how it went for me. And then all of these words were like, oh, okay, did I actually fuck up my brain? And then I was like, okay, I can hold that perspective, but what is my own perspective when I understand the energy and inner dance, and like when I understand what actually happened in my brain, I could feel what was there. So do I come from a, yes, of course, the authority of a doctor or a scientist and researchers that I respect, but also maybe there's the other part of me that has an understanding of what is. And so like um yeah, without wanting to allow too much uh um power in a way to this, but to hold it in a way that brings it in an equal space, um, was my like my own process to look into, because I also could feel the sometimes the insecurity in me, or the fear of like, okay, like it's in me to hold that space, and it's in me to look into epilepsy, and what, why is this happening when I'm like in a train, and why, like what is being held there, and like what is this feeble-minded part in us that is not being allowed in the society, and how much it's being held in a way that is like rejected and not actually embraced, and how can we come in a like more holistic and wholesome integration with this. um yeah, but I have so much question about like all of this, and especially the music and sound part, and like what can influence what. And I've been looking into the brain waves, and then I was like there's these like epsilon and lambda or something like this brain waves, and like it's below delta. One is below delta, and the other one is like super high. And I was like, okay, I'm not. It's like I just entered a never-ending study. So I'm also curious if anyone has already knowledge or things to share, videos or books that like super interesting for me to start. So yeah, thank you.
I would like to say something shortly. First, thank you so much for letting us and letting me details more about the context of your processes that I have was outside of the sound experience and was more as a personal spiritual updating and expansion, as you describe it very well. When I was experienced 7 days of blindness. In your case was no language. In my case was non-seeing. In 2017, when I had this first energetic stuff, I was traveling from Amsterdam to Vienna. Actually was arriving to Vienna when I got this blind thing, just seeing weird clouds and having a voice inside myself telling me not going to the doctors because I will be in troubles with them. And right after I recovered the naturally the vision, and with a sense of tiredness and a sense of I was facing the darkest moment of my journey in this lifetime, in the experience that I was involved, in the situations that I was involved, and at the same time, I was able to hold a space energetically without music for people, holding groups. It was very contradictory. And days after that, I recovered the vision. I was in the synchronicity with this doctor and this guy called Tom Kenyon, and being able to join to his weekend retreat. And I was having the experience of having things, a lot of impressions and sonic impacts with one guy that was just holding a singing bowl, crystal singing bowl, a bell, and shifting shape and voices through the different animals, archetypes, and sound that he was channeling during that 2 days of weekend. And well, you makes me acknowledge and remember this about losing a sense or losing something in the process of expansion, because yes, you are helping me with your feedback and your sharing to maybe relabeling few things and located things in some way in my personal journey. I just want to give you thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I have a question. Does anyone have experience with people that have mental illnesses? Well, as we label them. I'm not sure. Like, I feel like this question has been raised many times, but I think I've never heard an answer like how it really happened. Because why I'm asking, because the people are asking me the people that have been to our trainings, the trainings that we do here, the 10-day sort of like energy school or intensive with my mom. We've been doing it already for 5 years. And a lot of those people are facilitating here in Lithuania. And some of them recently asked me, like, can you facilitate inner dance to people who have mental disorders? And it's like I've never answered that question to myself, like what really happens. Also, somehow some of them in their memory have us, me or my mom, I'm not sure who's, saying that you're not supposed to do it for people who have epilepsy, which is weird because now the epileptic topic is coming up a lot, and I don't recall saying that you're not supposed to in any way. But then what happens? Do any of us know anything about it?
So I personally never had someone, I mean, like high anxiety and things like this. But if we look into schizophrenia or bipolarity or like other kind of like more serious mental illnesses, no, I know some facilitators that did, and it actually helped the person more. I think it's like a case by case, probably, like how in trust the person is, like within the system also. So I cannot answer fully. And for the epilepsy, yeah, what Pi is sharing is like that the first person he actually held inner dance for was a boy who was epileptic. So this is very interesting, but I'm also curious to hear if anyone has something to share about this.
I could probably say a few things on it. I don't know if I've worked with anybody who's been clinically diagnosed with mental illness, although I've had some pretty weird experiences, like one woman who the best way to describe it was that she seemed to be possessed by something, like and I don't really know what that means, but she started speaking in a really kind of a dark voice, like this kind of dark presence thing, and basically was saying, I'm coming to get you, and you're not going to be able to withstand me, and all of these kinds of things. I think some of it is in the framing for me. So when I hold inner dance sessions, I mean, I will try to be as mild on the expectations as possible for people. So it's like it's a therapeutic thing. It's an experimental thing, like helping people to know exactly where they're at and where I'm at, and not like overclaiming this is what it can do for you. It's like, this is what some people experience, this is what other people experience. But I find setting up the container linguistically to be really powerful, because then people kind of, then expectations are not necessarily too high that this is going to solve all my problems, but there is a kind of an invitation for them to let go a little bit. So I would work with people who maybe have been clinically diagnosed, and I am about to work with somebody who has had a brain tumor, and I don't know how much I'm going to use inner dance, how much I'm going to use other stuff. But I think really, as far as I've described it to people, it's like inner dance is about finding the connection, because it's kind of like anti-diagnosis inner dance. It's like mental illness is a kind of a box or a category, and inner dance is like a decategorization type thing. And so it really for me is like focusing on connection, like how can you facilitate connection through relationship, through like the safety of the space, which is being really clear and being not necessarily, I did used to like try to sell people, I think, on like a language front, and I would speak very, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I mean, I think it was probably just insecurity, or or maybe just that's where I was like interested in like the mystical side and that aspect. And I find that can work sometimes with, or it's a useful thing to have. But when it comes to people, at least in the UK, maybe feeling more safe, it's like they want to know where the ground is, like what's happening here, what am I in for, and then anything that happens on top of that is like maybe a bonus. Maybe they have some kind of interesting experience. But yeah, in terms of mental illness, I've been doing it a long time, but I would work with somebody in that regard, but just be very, very clear expectations. Like, this is not a therapy. This is not like a, what would you say? This is not like a kind of a medical technique or a medical practice or any kind of association like that. It's listening to music at any time. You're in control if you want to step out, if it's feeling too much, and kind of give them a sense of where their responsibility is and where our responsibility is, so that they can understand a bit about boundaries and like how the container is set up. Is any of that making sense? Yeah, and then I think that can help, that safety, at least I've found in Western speaking countries, it seems, is like a place where people can actually feel a little bit more relaxed, and then they're a bit more open to something that might happen. So I've tended to like veer more away from slightly more esoteric language in my presentation of what inner dance is, because I think sometimes it can be difficult for people there's already like a preconceived judgment about it, I think, and then it can be difficult for people to know, or to at least feel safe with that. That's just what I've observed anyway.
Thanks. I also had a thought while you were sharing. I think quite recently I had a process actually with psychedelics, but I really don't see much of a difference between inner dance and psychedelics, especially like a lot of people going to the sessions, they often say, oh, it's like psychedelics. For me, it was the opposite. I did a lot of inner dance and then I tried psychedelics. And for me, it was just like, okay, it's inner dance. So I had a process about, after recently watching a film about mental illnesses and bipolarity, and talking to my brother about the film and telling about the film in a way that my brother said, well, you sound like you're subscribing to the idea of mental illnesses. I was like, no. But I was like telling the story, putting them, the people that have mental illnesses, as somebody that is different from me. Like, I don't have it, they have it in a way. And during that trip, I kind of suddenly, the whole concept of mental illness shattered in a way that all of us have it just as, how to say, layers of us, and either they're dominating and we're kind of, or either we're at peace with those layers or we're not. And usually, well, at least from what I saw, it's mostly places of strong conflict within the person that manifest as something we perceive as mental illness. And I really saw that I'm bipolar. And it's interesting to actually see that you are yourself mentally ill, and then you kind of you're not afraid of those illnesses anymore, because you're like, okay, it's that thing, I know it. So I saw the bipolarity, and the movie was about it. So it's interesting. There was a bipolar girl that well, the movie was in Spanish. It's a Spanish movie, so I don't know how it's in English, but they call it maniaco depresiva. So I really see now those moments in life where when I have a mania, like whether it's just to clean something or get something in order or just like achieve. It's like there is this tendency of kind of being focused and set on something, and it's very, very much of a mania. And then the depression, of course, we have those ups and downs. Well, my dad says that all women are schizophrenic and all men are autistic, just a different degree. So I guess it was just me looking at that. Yeah, I just wanted to share it.
That's quite funny. I was thinking then when you were talking about it, it's like I think the definition of mental illness probably. We were exploring this podcast the other day on the brain and like psychopathy and how our mind we have like that very kind of left brain categorization thing, and it almost as we try to explore the territory of categorization, it's like the categories have to become smaller and smaller and more defined as we like look at it through that lens. And I was listening to somebody talking about mental illness at work today, and then trying to put the two and two together, like categorization, mental illness, and it seems like one of the definitions of mental illness seems to be whether it's something that is somebody experiences that's problematic to like the collective. So if somebody's doing something that is not within that doesn't kind of reflect back a neat like a neat kind of fitting into the collective structures that we've organized, it's like, well, that's a mental illness. That's somewhere at the bottom end of the bell curve, some kind of deviation from the mean. And so we'll categorize that as an illness. And I think I've noticed like this movement of trying to re-language that more lately with like the neurodiversity things that people talk about. And I would guess like I don't know what neurotypical actually means. I don't know what the standard definition of it is, but certainly here in the UK and in a lot of the Western world, it seems like we're going towards this idea of neurodiversity as people's brains work in slightly different ways. But I think these things that we try to categorize seem to be things that like they're not just like a static thing in time. They're more like a string of different processes. Like if this, then this, with these factors, then this, and we try to like. Seems like we're trying to figure that out we're trying to map the whole thing in terms of categories, but it seems like it's ever increasing in complexity. So, I think the decategorization and that kind of more right brain process orientation, soupy, quantum soupy type thing is more where inner dance is. So, I guess even the term mental illness, like you're saying, is kind of an interesting idea. Like, oh, what does that actually mean? If you like deconstruct that a little bit. Yeah, anyway, just some thoughts.
It's interesting that even to look at we also have a normal body temperature. It's like 36.5, and everything below or above it, it's like you have a fever or something is abnormal. Like, and people really take these thresholds as a rule. They don't look at anything outside of it as a normal thing. So the same about the mental illnesses or any kind of illness. It's just something that goes outside of the some sort of a threshold drawn by somebody in the past. And I've been having a lot of actually raised body temperature since now. I think it was since I got introduced the term of retrocausality. In some way, just messed with me big time. I mean, during the sessions in Helsinki, also had fever, like fever, just raised body temperature, and yeah, that would come like from time to time in the past few months. And I kind of was telling the story of the beginning of me learning about retrocausality to make, and I said, well, it heated up my brain. And that moment I said it, it heated up my brain. I realized, oh, it was heating up my body too. That's why I was having fever. Yeah, I'm not sure how many of you are looking at that term, but it's really, it's a lot of fun. It was perfect.
Yeah, thank you guys for sharing. It really brings me back to like the personal process. Like my grandma was maniacal depressive. So all her life she never worked, and I was before inner dance and in like coming from a very big space of judgment, like holding kind of the collective, and she was medicated a lot, and things happened like she burned her house in the middle of the night. Like my dad had to take care. Like it's so many stories I can share, and I think she was never understood. And she's the woman that has the biggest heart that I know. Like so generous, like such a wonderful person. And I think so. She passed away 2 years ago, a year and a half. Yeah, 2 years. No, 2 years ago. And for me, through her leaving the space, it was actually the first time that I reconnected with her, and I had more this inner dance understanding. And it's like it's interesting how the collective is holding something with them, that like mental illnesses and like schizophrenia and maniacal depressive bipolarity, and we're holding so many like strong words also that has a very strong meaning, and are mostly negative meaning to what they are going through, what they experience. And so there's actually a big collective misunderstanding of what they are. And so I think if I would approach someone within inner dance that has a mental illness, I would go into a conversation to actually break this misunderstanding, and also in the person that like you're not sick, actually to like look into it as, and the word that keeps coming back now is like dimensionality. And what I feel is that these people are just living more in space than in time, and then because we're so bound by time, we don't have this understanding of where they go. And so, and this is also related to aphasia. Like when I was like going into all of these spaces and I was coming back to myself, I was like, oh, like actually there's this happening. And then also this made me connect to my grandmother, because I was like, oh, this is how she was. Actually, she was not crazy, she was not like depressive, or like she's actually holding something super strong, and she's going into spaces, and she's like understanding like the world, and she's like stepping into different dimensions. And something very personal also that I'm looking into is like this possessiveness that Tom shared. I'm I'm personally going into this as well, but I see it as dimensionality. Like I can be a medium for different things to happen, but it's always like a personal process for me to understand something. But like being possessed or like a spirit is coming to me is kind of like one type of understanding, and the other type of understanding is like I'm actually holding two dimensions at the same time. So I am me in my body, and then I'm tapping into another dimension where I become a medium for a certain energy to pass through. And so before, like I was holding more fear related to it because I couldn't understand. And then through different experiences, I'm actually understanding that like it's like looking into historicity. And when sometimes you go into a land and you're like, oh, like this church is holding so much, and then you can feel the vibration of a space, or this is the same thing. Like we just enter into like how much the space itself holds so much history, or so much like layers of this is like this happened, like it's almost sometimes you can feel like, oh, there was a war, or there was like some like or an emotional charge that is in the space. So um yeah, these are for me very sensitive subject that I don't really talk about so much, because it's like it can be misinterpreted so much and can come from like a space of insecurity or fear from me or from others. And then it's like how do we actually change our language and change the understanding of the collective, and address it, and change our perspective on a lot of these subjects, because it's super sensitive, and it's almost kind of taboo unless you know someone, then you don't talk about it. And like I mean in the West, like in Canada, and like in different culture, like if we look into mental illnesses, sometimes people are actually praised for it, and then they're seen as being like, oh, connected to spirit, and they have wisdom, and like, and so what is it that we hold, and what is the very old fear that we have in us that we can actually look into and address every time that something is coming up in the space, and be more comfortable within ourselves to address this with the people that are in our countries, and and yeah, like break down the conditioning to be like, okay, let's look into this. Can we hold a conversation about it, and not come from prejudgmental um like spaces, and but it's something like for me, I think I would need to formulate like something in my mind, or have my own understanding of it to be able to actually address it. So it's something to address it within the inner dance community, but to really address it in a like to someone that holds a separate belief system, it can be like, yeah, challenging, or like, yeah.
Yeah, I find that quite interesting, the language thing, and how to language these things. In this thing we were studying the other day, they were talking about the Barinmo tribe, who don't see the color blue. They see like 40 different shades of green, because they live in the jungle, and that's kind of what's important. But if you had to put blue and green next to each other, they don't have like a separate word, so they don't kind of see it. And I really think like language shapes perception in a lot of ways. Like language really kind of thingifies processes and turns them into things. And I think like approaching people with that kind of curiosity really helps. Like for me, I found I'm able to open up conversations about it. And I think like a lot of your own internal work helps with that as well. It's like, yeah, this is kind of unusual stuff. It's fringe stuff. It's borderline stuff. And you're kind of on the edge of interesting ideas and concepts. And I think to be able to like organize your language around that in a way that, I guess I'm coming back to that idea of like the kind of the groundedness. This is what's been beneficial for me about being back in the UK, is like trying to get a little bit more structured in my language, so that I can connect with people and talk about things that are interesting. And I guess like the journey of not having as much self-judgment around it as well. I think when I first got into inner dance, there was a lot of like self-judgment around what the hell am I doing? Like, this is so weird. I'm such a weirdo. And it's like, well, if you I spent a lot of time like maybe both trying to fit in, but in a very rebellious kind of way. And having been through a lot of that process, and I think finding a bit more ground in yourself, I find that openness and that curiosity. It's like I'm working on as a carpenter on a construction site, and I'm able to have interesting conversations with the guys there, not to judge other carpenters or builders, but it's not necessarily a place that's renowned for its curious and highly exploratory conversational flow. But I find I'm able to talk to these guys a little bit about breath work and some mental health stuff, and then bridge that slightly into kind of music theory and brain waves. And this is this thing that we're studying in sleep cycles, and there is really a lot of great resources out there that are starting to legitimize this. I'm gonna have to break this cat fight up, I'm afraid. Sorry, I just had to pull them apart, but I was kind of done anyway. But I need to be in quarantine for a little while, self-isolation.
Sauligri is your name? Sorry, I was very no easy pronounce or reading.
Saule, yes.
Saule, okay. Well, you were sharing about, if I remember well, about the sensations that was coming to you from the group when you were sharing the playlist of synchronity, yeah? I want to share something from my fresh experience that I don't know if it can contribute also to understanding myself, and maybe related to what you were sharing in terms how lack of something can play a role in can describing and categorizing the quality of the experience. So how we can have the tendency to label in certain ways and certain emotions, certain experiences and spaces when we are describing that something was a good, a regular, or not good enough journey of something, yeah. As a deconstruction, as a place of, as a multidimensional machine of peeling onions, which is inner dance in the container. Also, as a participant, as someone that is merging with this space, this energy, and this dimensionality, this dimension. What I can say is, well, we are everyone in the room is made of different categories of vibrations and values and perceptions, remembers, appreciations and constructions, that make us to be who we are and make us to label the things as we label it. Yeah. But this entering in that space make us also to be in kind of sympathy as the strings of the sitar, by sympathy, they resonate with the other strings. We also resonate with the contractions from our contractions with other people in the space. It's potentially there that we are in this space where the borders starting to dissolve, and we are on an interesting, how to say, to me, it's like a critical mass that we are together in that moment. The individual processes, the collective processes, the way that Earth is holding us, the way that different visible and invisible networking they are operating is making a lot of interaction and exchanging of information and feelings and sensations that they can make our own triggers and our own inconsistencies having an opportunity to be vibratorily visible, and we can have an interesting opportunity to relabel what is presented in our very eyes. I has been holding spaces where in the same day for a German group, the playlist is amazing, and for the American group is stressful, is strange. And the same day, the same playlist. Of course, I didn't play it exactly the same way because it's not easier to me to hold 10 or 12 layers and play the 12 and 10 layers live at the same way at the same time. It's not true. Of course, there's things changing, but the topics and the layering and the journey was more or less similar, but the interaction was very different. I was feeling very bad, very sad in some moment, but I was dispersonalizing myself from that categorization of the experience and the space that I was holding, and also not playing a role of power, but assuming the responsibility of feeling unconditionally what I was feeling. Because also as an inner dance holders, as an inner dance experience is to accepting the full range of what it is. And actually, what was coming from the feedback of people, few of them, 4, which is a lot, where they were experiencing releasing dreams, really dreams of the category of releasing. 2 of them, they were experiencing a lot of gratitude, impulse, and sensations in the personal spiritual work in the day after. It was interesting to see how that categorization that I did about the experience and the space and the interaction of them with the energy, with the music, and with the different variables and things that are part of the process. And also my own personal sequence of judgments and inconsistencies about if I'm really trusting in what I'm holding, if I'm really trusting that there's not a bad experience, and I'm really trusting that what the playlist that I'm choosing or the sounds that I'm choosing and my honest intuition and with the criteria that is built by this process of study and this knowing and understanding things in order also to trust and being and flowing intuitively. It makes me remember a lot to one of the greatest musicians of the last century, which is John Coltrane. And he was able to deconstruct the present music and bringing through the language of jazz a new thing and making the frontiers going to another way. And he used to say, well, you need to learn many things, scales, all this language of Western construction, and you need to go to the stage and forgetting all this shit, letting go this, and flowing in dance with the spirit. He was very much a mystic. He was talking about the music as a intelligence in itself, as a spiritual master. And well, is also trying to apply this here, all this trust, all this understanding, all this left and right brain approach, to trusting in what we are having, and also not bypassing that categorization or that feelings. I used sometimes to experience inside the space that I'm holding sadnesses that are not really related to my personal story. Or I can make some conclusions in the end of the playlist that I say, wow, this playlist, this journey was strange to me, because I am also using my headphones and I'm receiving the alchemy of what is happening during the process. I'm really wanting to not missing my presence in the process. I really want to go with them to what I'm playing and what is taking place. And not making this bypass, but also having the space where I can see my human condition of my lacks, of my fears, and finding outside of inner dance space and my personal practice ways to listen that voices in a way that they can be, and they can be attend in a way that my humanness, my emotional body, my journey of emotional integrity related to my way to hold myself can contribute to me to taking the lessons, the learnings, and the inputs that they allow me to becoming more neutral, more equal, and being able to hold that neutrality with people independently of their categorization of experience. So I don't know if this is contributing, but I felt inspired to say this, and thank you for letting me share something.
Yeah, thank you, Oscar. It does resonate a lot, because I was also looking at some of the things you mentioned, that kind of relabeling or recategorizing things. Like when there is a certain density of information, you're kind of also having that opportunity of just changing what the definition of it. So I also felt like within the discomfort that I was feeling in the space, I was also very peaceful, as if like I was okay with the discomfort. So this is exactly what inner dance holds for people, also for them to not like kind of go out of this fear avoidance cycle and avoiding the pain and fear and the discomfort. So yeah, I'm sure it was also what people were able to experience in that sense. And interesting about the touch. I really enjoyed the topic of touching the bodies in the Studios Mundos group, because well, a lot was spoken about it. And myself, I had recently came back to touching people, because I was with DJ Pro for past few years and never being able to even go to the people. Well, sometimes maybe having like a 2-minute window that I could go touch someone. And the last year, I'm not able to do music live because I don't have a library. It's like I'm not able to use the old library, and I haven't created a new one. So I'm in this like limbo of not being able to do it, because the old library doesn't suit me, and I don't have a new one. So I went back to touching, and I was like, oh, I missed it in the past few years. I didn't have any. And then the topic came up, and it resonated a lot. The whole power thing. Of course, there's a lot of people who say like, oh, when you touched there, I was having this, and like you know. And I was like, it's not me. So it's like it's hard to give power to the people when you come and touch them in the process. in the most innocent way that you do it. So, but I really noticed during this synchronic playlist that the touch was the main thing that kind of gave well, maybe it was just for me, gave me that security, that that people are safe and I'm with them, and like no matter what is happening, it's like it's okay. So I guess it was the first time that I really felt that need of the touch in space, because I also agree that it's a bit a tricky concept. Hard to know what it actually does. Like with the music also, we didn't know in the past how much of the same like cycle of dependency it could be creating for people. So, and the touch gives a lot of provides a lot of comfort and pleasure. A lot of people say that. Rarely it's the opposite. So yeah, maybe that goes away also at some point. But now maybe when we're having the shift in the music being like less comfortable, maybe the comfort of the touch now has an importance. Yeah, thank you.
I think I've been in a lot of sessions where the people have not been happy with the touch, and I know I've had sessions myself where it's been more kind of challenging and a little bit triggering, and people coming afterwards, or people saying when we were doing a lot of sessions in BK, I suppose it was about 5 or 6 years ago, like our touch was kind of framed as something that could be both challenging and supportive. It's like it's supposed to sometimes offer a little bit of challenge. I have found myself not always that comfortable with touch, I think, in general. And I think sometimes, I don't know if this is like a British thing, maybe, but like when people lie down here, they're just like this most of the time. Like they're not very expressive. And I think I will try to touch often in a way that just brings somebody's attention to a certain point or a certain place. So like the back of the head or the solar plexus or the heart or something like that. And it tends to be very, very soft. But I've had it with facilitators, and funnily enough, we did some immersions in France, and it got just like a touch fest. Like people were like really getting into the whole touch thing, and maybe that was like a contrast in cultures. But yeah, and I think it became more like a kind of a contact improv session then. It's just kind of an interesting thing as well, you got inner dance and contact improv, and a somewhat blurry line sometimes between that, but it didn't feel like as much like this maybe deep. I know that when I'm on my mat, and if I'm like really in this close to sleep, and it's where I get to like the nearly sleep state, and I'm like I'm kind of there but not quite there, and somewhere between theta and delta, and that's when I find it's like I've got soft enough for things to suddenly shift and change, and I'll kind of wake up and be like, oh, that was that thing that I'd been moving towards this thing unconsciously, and then suddenly it rearranged itself within me because I'd kind of gone to sleep consciously in some way. I don't know where I was going with that. Just started thinking about things freestyle. Thanks.
Yeah, I noticed also about the touch. The touch has happened here too, especially during the 10 days when people are like very much comfortable with each other, and then it's like they're going all the way. We've had interesting things, and but it's different when people come for a session out of their own environment, and then the touch somehow is most of the time acceptable, good, or wanted. Myself, when I'm lying down, I usually don't like when people touch me. I just feel like it interferes with whatever is happening almost always. Yeah, except in Helsinki, actually, it was the first time I was like, oh, this is good touch. It was Johanna Nituli, I think. It was very subtle, very sweet. So that one was the one I liked.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think one like my I don't know, fourth session that I was co-facilitating like 5 years ago or something like this. I had a big process with touch, and like it really shifted my perspective of it and my own allowance, because I was so new to all of this that I was like, I don't know what to do, like how, where, like, and then I was coming from as if there are specific points, like, you know, Chinese medicine style of holding, and then I was just intuitively trusting and going there, and it was like, okay, it's a trust process, and let's go, and then it happened that before I entered the space, I closed my eyes, and like I saw the whole space in front of me, exactly how the room was, but everything was red, and there was a big X in my head, and I was like, oh shit, I feel something bad is gonna happen or something, you know, and but I put this aside and I just go in, and then I go, and then there's this girl that I feel kind of like I have to go to her, and then I touch again, and then I go back and I touch again. And she was screaming like, no, 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 and let go of me and things like this. She was like into her own process. And then she ended up taking my hand and pushing me and being like, stop touching me, like super, super loud. And it's like the fourth time that I facilitate. I'm new to all of this, and I'm like, and I felt so bad. And then I was like, oh my God, you know, like what happened? And I had to take a moment for myself, and I was like, oh, okay, I don't want to touch anyone. What did I do wrong? Like, and you know, like I was going like strong and in her stomach, I think, or something. I don't actually remember. It doesn't matter where I touched, but this type of thing happened. I was like, did I do too strong? Maybe she was in pain, maybe. And then slowly through like inner dance studies and everything, I understood, and also with her sharing at the end, that this was my own process for myself to go into, and for her it was a process to say no. This was her own process to speak for herself and to be able to say no. And then she shared afterwards that she was like, her story was that she had an abusive father and she could never say no to her dad, and that she was in this process, and me, I was going back to it. Why I had this kind of like going back, and I was like, I don't know why I need to go touch her, you know, like what is this? And then I was like like almost like wanting to trigger her, but not coming from who I am, not coming from my persona, but going back to it. And then this big no, and I was like, okay, so I actually trusted the part of me that wanted to go there. And then my personal process was like I don't want to like like be a bad person, and I don't want to like cross boundaries, and I'm a people pleaser, and I so it touched my whole personal process to this. But like then there was nothing good and there was nothing bad, and there's no good touch or bad touch. So it created right away trust in myself to actually go there, and then to trust that maybe the person has to go into its own process to say no, or they're gonna know ahead of time, like, hey, I don't want to be touched in my head, or I don't want to be touched there, or so it was, yeah, very interesting for me to be this, and kind of in the, like, not traumatizing way, but like very strong, like, whoa, like what is happening, and it gave me like a, like, yeah, a deep understanding of my own boundaries as well, and my own trust process to say no, because it happened also in when I was laying down, that the facilitator went too far for me, and I pushed him, like, I really, like, I got up, and I pushed him like so strongly that I surprised myself, like this power in me just came, and I was like, oh, what just happened? But then, like, he was crossing my boundaries, so this was like, I experienced both sides. So, like, yeah, I think for touch, like, but it's also very cultural based. Like in Thailand, if I'm with Thai people, I know that if you touch the head, it's very, like, disrespectful. Like, you don't touch the head of someone in Thailand, or like, then if you have these, like, you know, in UK, you say like people are more like this, or sometimes in Germany it happens that I just slowly go more like for hands, and I'm not like, okay, I'm gonna like rip your solar plexus apart, or like, you know, like, and my touch evolved, not evolved because it's not a growth or evolution, but it more like it changed over time, and like adapted to whatever is in the room.
Well, I would like to say shortly that you made, now that you bring this calling about touching and all these things, where I also was participating. This calling was very important to me in different layers. I will try to be short. One, because in the way that I was holding a space before and touch with the music and just with the space and energy, I was a touchy person for sure. And through this school and what is coming here, I start to discover other values and another exchange that they are important in order to hold in the space. So I was becoming more interested in the qualities of the space that I'm holding, that my performance individual in the space. Yeah. So when I did the first session with children's, I was really respectful. I was preventing myself to go into inviting them or to triggering them. But it was in the second round of holding the energy, and I don't know how to describe that. But after made the first turnaround and seeing their bodies moving without being touched, one of the children's, he, with his body, he didn't want to participate, and I didn't touch him, or I didn't approach to him. His body language was finding a space. So I give two turnarounds, and I didn't pay attention to him. I ignored him. And when I'm doing the second round, he'd say to me, I want to experience this. Can you touch me? And I put my hand on his head, and he made the magics happen. When he said this, something was available in the space for him. And immediately he started to get dizzy. He falls and he started to move as the other children. It was very impressive. So with the process and through holding a space on distance, I was noticing in my perspective and my way to go through the change as you described, Fanny. I was seeing that, or not seeing, maybe making conclusions that where I am, how is my day, how is my personal practice, my personal sadhana, what I'm eating, how I'm interacting in my daily basis life, what is the quality and the waves that I'm dancing during the day, how much this is having implications in the quality of the space that I'm holding. So being able to hold three sessions per week was quite demanding shift in how I am in my daily life, and putting more attention to my human daily performance than my spiritual practices and not more than what I'm doing in inner dance. And I started to noticing when I were going through challenge or health challenge or difficulties, and I was I have a liver collapse 3 weeks ago. I was in the calling with you guys, but I was half dead. It was very difficult. I was 8 days laid down. It was the week that I was, I don't know if you noticed it, maybe not, it's okay, but I wasn't able to hold the space during 1 week. And was a very profound thing that was bringing me change in another areas. And when I returned to the session and to opening, holding a space, 3 cup ladies from Mexico, they told me, we want a session with you in person. I say, oh my God, there's a trigger. And what I'm triggered. And of course, to holding space for cup facilitators when they are coming in this electrical touching and all these experiences, and how I can redimension what is the holding space, what is the whole thing beyond the concepts of activating, kundalini, awakening, and all the things that really, I'm more peaceful, but I was really tired. And even if I'm participating in receiving, I wasn't anymore related to the space through that filters. So I was in the space, I was making a selection of sounds and playlists for them. I hold the space last Saturday. We were just 3 of us together, and I was prevented to not touching nobody. I say, I don't want to do the same. I want to really allow the authentic guidance of the dialogue with the energy. I'm here with the Divine Mother. I'm here with Mother Earth. So I was holding the space. I was holding the space. The music started. I was paying attention to the mix of the sounds, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly I have a vision, as you were mentioning, Fanny, where I supposed to put my fingers in this position, and I saw my hands on their very feet. And I say, oh my God, this is my ego. What is going on? And I say, okay, show me a guidance, God. Show me a guidance that I'm not here playing this game. This is not me, and this is not my purpose. And I don't want to fall in this temptation of power. I was very clear with myself. And the vision become more repetitive and say, okay, I will do it. So I was leaving the computer. I was going to the space. And also when I touched them and they were reacting, I don't know exactly. I have suspicions, but I don't want to go there. What would happen? And when we say about touching and touching the bodies, our electromagnetic field is also our body. Our auric field is a body. Our mental field is a body. Our emotional field is a body. And all of them can be in touch and exchange without being in physical touch. It's touching, but we are not talking about physicality, but it's so tangible and it's so powerful inside that space. So I was refusing to follow that guidance again. And I was just in the space to say, okay, if I need to touch them, I will touch them from outside. Not just culturally, they gave me all the trust. They told me, Oscar, if you need to do something, come, touch us, do what you feel, we trust on you. And I feel very comfortable with that. I wasn't having this, but it was me who didn't want. And in the last 15 minutes, something in my inner screen was vibrating and indicating to pay attention to one of these triggers. And well, I saw my hand going to her womb and to her heart. I say, here we go again. I say, I will trust. They gave me permission. They trust me. I'm here learning, holding, and not playing that role. So I'm sure that I'm doing this from my heart, from an authentic place. So I put my hands on her womb and on her heart. She had a particular reaction of releasing. So right after ends the session, she goes straight to the bathroom, and she came to tell me, you know, I want to tell you something. I had some problems in my cycle, and my cycle just came up. And today is supposed to calm my cycle. And it's again restarting in the same point. Thank you so much. What you did, what you saw. And I say, I cannot tell you more than I was trusting. And I was also refusing to go to you for this conditioning, this learning, and my way to identify with gut processes and all these things. So this calling was really helping me to find a medium term where what is the quality of the space that I'm holding that allow the mechanism to happen in itself with less intervention of myself. Also being open and flexible with this boundary that I set for myself in order when it's really I don't think that demanding, I don't find the word, but is invited or suggested to perform in that way. And no me sabotaging myself with this judgment and these contractions and these positions, because also they are noises inside the space. They are ways of resistance for any reason. So this calling and that experience, that session, and seeing the right there result was also making me to reconsidering things. I'm still processing and digesting that. And well, this is the one to share about the touching topic because has been changing a lot for me during the last 4 weeks. So I wanted to share that experience. Thank you.
Just a thought as a reminder for all of us. It's like it's very easy when you come out of something or set yourself free, like in your perception from something. For example, like realizing that, oh, the touch is bad, so maybe like I should be free from that, like imposing some sort of power or being a channel or a medium for someone. But then it's very easy to get trapped in the kind of new box. So I guess not having a definition on any of the things is the easiest way, because then we don't even notice when the new definitions trap us in new conflicts within ourselves. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Now, there's something called access bars. I know that many of you know that, the touching head and rewriting and erasing things. And they say each conclusion is a way to kill the flow. If you want to be open to what is there offered for you and your highest potential, you need to be able to drop out your conclusions about
things. Yeah. Hey, everyone. It's been interesting to follow the dialogue and sharings. Maybe this bridges. There were so many thoughts along this dialogue. So let's see what I can share from this a lot. Everything that happened. I like all the topics are related to how we are able to interpret the many layers vibrationally, and how like a perception or yeah, let's say a conclusion, or like you said, or any perception is being built within all these multiple dimensionalities, within all of them affecting, but when there would be a conclusion or a determination, it would just speak from one of them. And when you were sharing about the mental illnesses, I also was laughing because yeah, there is a lot related to the personal experience in that. But yeah, I could share that there has been a couple of sharings in the sessions, and actually both of them has, or yeah, no, the other one was in a festival where after session one woman was sharing openly there that she's got like a clinical what is it, yeah, well, she's basically having like 5 personalities, and she's always going from one to the other, and this was like her first inner dance, and she experienced her first time ever being, I think she kind of explained that she experienced being herself, but holding all the personalities in one go, so that every one of her personalities were there present, and she could feel okay with it. And yeah, and another woman shared in one session that she's going to therapy, and she's all the time talking about her problems and traumas and everything, and trying to work with her mind, and having medication and things like this. And then she comes into an inner dance space where she can dive into her experience of herself and all the layers of herself in one go, and without a direction, or without kind of having to always go into the same story, and bodily kind of experience her layers of being. And she was really happy with it. And I haven't gone into a dialogue with this woman who had these multiple personalities later. I'm quite certain that she is one person who's been coming like for years now to the sessions. So I haven't asked her how she feels and how it's evolved, but these are the experiences that, like, straightforward could go there, that for sure support the thing and the theme, that where there is a space that does not exclude anything, but is inclusive, and where kind of an vocabularization or a medical conditioning could become included in the space, and kind of bringing out from the separation that the outer kind of determination to what the condition is creates, and then allows all all the dimensionalities to be embodied. And yeah, and then in a personal way, how we are sharing that the process allows deconstruction to happen in even bringing you into some sort of aphasic or blindness or whatsoever, like really yeah, through something really diverse, and into a new information, and like rearranging everything. It's the mental illness theme speaks to me, because it feels like kind of I became crazy through inner dance. Instead of losing my my speaking, or instead of losing my sight or losing anything, I lost time. I lost my mind. I lost my body. I was not like, I lost everything, and I felt perfectly like aligned. Like that was the most aligned thing that could ever happen to me, and it was like a huge shift of information rearranging itself within my all my dimensionalities. And it's been quite a journey trying to kind of like reforming it. I've been playing with the words transformation, information, and reformation lately. And how in some ways a new perception or transformation happens within some sort of a transformation is some sort of a change of perception after all, where and maybe there is an information beforehand that internally rearranges itself and allows the transformation to happen, and then the reformation afterwards, or they can change the direction. And coming from time to the space, and to the spacey where there is no direction. Also, there is no directionality in between the dimensions. So what comes first? Like what we were talking last summer a lot about the retrocausality that Saula mentioned. It's really interesting. And still in the non-timely space, but integrated, and something I wanted to share. I don't have an insight about it in a way. It's still internally forming itself in me. But I had the weekend training, or the immersion, a week ago, and this was what I've been preparing for some time already, as the studies around the frameworks has been happening simultaneously along the personal deconstruction of what I how I experience everything personally, myself or anything that exists, so the studies have been all the time ongoing, and it's been in English, and the frameworks also have been in English, and all the dialogues basically, well, except from the space holding here in Finland, and some friends that I can share with in Finnish, and Italy of course as well. But so yeah, I was going to this towards the training, and kind of wanting to know that what I hold, and kind of wanting to also know that how can I hold it, and I'm going through my library of, which is really unorganized, like it's not in time, and it's like it's all over the place. It's in my vision, it's in my body, and it's all really in a way intuitive, and it's embodied in my experience in vibrationally. But to bring it, what Tom mentioned, to be able to come back into the language, and come back into kind of forming something sensible and tangible, to be able to pass it forward to someone else who doesn't know about it, was really difficult, and what I've been wanting to go towards. And also, for that everything has been in English, I've been doing the translation to Finnish language, and holding space, and also including there some bits of frameworks, to be able to start kind of changing my vibrational flow of vocabularization as well in Finnish, and kind of restructuring it. And in the end, after the training weekend, where everything before it was a big mesh of information somewhere, it was in me, but it was also kind of that I could just bring one thing and one thing and one thing, and then kind of like looking into the mesh of everything. But then wanting to bring some sort of like frame to what I will hold, I had to really compress. I had to compress, and I had to pick up some sort of like pieces of the mesh, and feel how I'm maybe bodily kind of experiencing them. And then when I was there, and giving, sharing what I have, and listening to the space, and going through the frames that I had put and compressed through on spot, but mostly even after the weekend, I felt like everything that was so vast and floating everywhere, and being like the information was around me in a way. It came into me somehow, like I embodied something while making the translations in Finnish, in my own language, and drawing it and experiencing it vibrationally, and experiencing speaking and listening to the space at the same time, that I felt like all the vastness of the information had compressed into little kind of like I could experience it being a little cube of a sugar, kind of this small thing. And I felt like, what's going on? Like I don't know anything. like I knew so much, and now that I've been trying to bring it here, and like sharing it, and putting it in some sort of forms, and then translating it, and now I don't have anything. And in the end, now that I've been processing it for a week or so, I feel that actually what happened was that when I was speaking and listening to it, I was listening, I was kind of like recreating the patterns in myself, and it was somehow embodied in a different way, the whole kind of external frame or external row of like jumping from dimensionality to another, that they somehow became more embodied, and that's why more kind of clear and more space that I can feel appeared, that is not so invasive and full and kind of disturbing as well, that everything became more clear in that way. And this is what I'm processing, and somehow it all came together during listening to these multiple things of vibrations. Thank you.
Something about responsibility came up also when Oscar was speaking about like his reflection to my sharing about the session, and maybe feeling discomfort in that, and then about the trust and everything. And I thought, that's the thing. You are sometimes uncomfortable when you think you have the responsibility, but then you don't feel like you're able to respond to what's happening. And also the retrocausality that Johanna mentioned, and the whole like vastness of information sometimes makes you like incapable of like saying anything at all. So it's like when you see the retrocausality and the cause and effect kind of changing places and going in both directions, time going in both directions, you realize that how to say, it's like remembering it makes you responsible for everything you do. Like the one directionality, like one direction makes you kind of not responsible for the things behind. You know, it's like, oh, it happened already, I will maybe change it in the future. But then when it goes both ways, you're bound to that moment that you have in, I don't know what I want to say actually, but it's something about responsibility. Well, thank you, Johanna, for sharing.
So, hi, Charlotte. Just letting you know that we're in a sharing space about anything that Could be personal or related to inner dance or anything that is there. So if you feel like sharing something, feel free to come in the space. If not, if anyone else would like to share.
Hello, Fanny. Thank you for inviting me talking. I'm joining very lately, and so I'm gonna catch up later with the call. And yeah, I was very happy to listen to this talk because it feels like family talking about deep, interesting stuff, and and so thank you for holding this call, and hope to listen to the full call later. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to share? We're 2.5 hours in. So we could also close the conversation, but if there's something more to share. I really love it when we can come into a conversation space and just, I feel like I'm just having a coffee or like a beer or like, okay, hi, what's up? How are you? Like, let's do a check-in. Yeah, it feels really good to be able to hold these conversations that are not that common sometimes, and that we can come together and hold that. I think there's so many layers into what we've shared that can actually expand furthermore into yeah, different conversations also. So it's already happening in the group chat a lot, and I'm happy to read so much experiences from everyone. It's really cool to have the community and to continue and to have a sense of continuity also, togetherness. So if you want to unmute, we can say good night. If someone wants to share something last minute. Thank you for co-holding. Bye everyone. Enjoy.
Bye bye.
I didn't
Good
share.
night.
Bye.
You want to
I
share,
didn't
Campbell?
share. No, I didn't share anything because I'm like fucking sick. I'm like it's horrible. I was listening to you. I was like, so it was really cool to hear from you guys. Really
Yeah.
interesting talks. I resonated a lot, just like many things and layers and everything. But I am in the sickness of the observation of the sickness is like coming here and here and here. Like now it's in my brain and my sameness and everything. And the more I resist, the more it stays. You know? I want to work. I want to do my things and everything, but no, it says no. You need to rest, man. So yeah, thank you for everything, guys. Love you all. I will put a question
Get
in the
better
chat,
soon.
actually. Yeah, thank you. I will put a question in the chat, but it's really technical. You know, it's about the audio, the bus, you know, the software, the app to link every app on my iPad. So I will put it in the chat. So maybe it's gonna be more practical. So thank you, everyone. Bisous.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you
Have
so
a
Thank
much.
good
you.
day.
Thank
Have
you.
a good rest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.